was a little choppy.
Okay.
Volume-wise, I can.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody good to go?
Yeah, I believe we're good.
Good evening and welcome to the February 2nd, 2021 Northern Lebanon School District Committee meeting. I call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for joining us virtually this evening. Please know that all webinar community member participants will remain on mute during the meeting unless they have put in a request to speak during the public comment period. Those choosing public comment were asked to submit the request by 4 o'clock this evening via email or online form. Mrs. Martin, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Gray?
Here.
Erdman?
Here.
Smaller? Marlowe?
Here.
Murray?
Here.
Klein? Sekelic?
Here.
Nom?
Here.
Bucks?
Here.
Director Klein absent, all other members are present.
Thank you.
Presentation. I'll talk. Actually, for the first time in months, there's no Crabtree presentation tonight. Leanne and Brad are here to talk about the resolution later on in the agenda. I'm going to wait till that item to have them explain those items. And then we also have a presentation that Leanne had given you a PowerPoint. That's going to come, we're going to do that at the regular board meeting. We still want to gather some data. One of the questions that Director Marlowe has asked on a regular basis, and I think we need to answer that question in that presentation, is what happens if we do nothing? What does that do to our costs? And obviously, we can't do nothing. We do have some things at the elementary schools to take care of. But if we work through those in a timely manner, what does that look like versus the building? So we're going to work on making sure we have that information. I would encourage you over the next couple of days, if there are other questions that you have, please let us know. We'll prepare answers for those, and then certainly that night be able to discuss. I also want to make it clear that the actual voting on a bond is not this month. And Brad and Leanne, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're looking at that for March. So you're not voting on that this month. So you'll have another a month to think about the numbers too, and ask more questions as well. And also we have, as you know, the Act 34 meeting tomorrow. That also we'll get some public comment and see how people are feeling about it. Okay.
Thank you for that update. All right, moving on to item 3, which is our public comment. Those wishing to make a request by 4 o'clock this evening via email or online form. Tonight we do have a public comment request from Mr. Andrew Murphy. Mr. Murphy, when you have given the time to speak, please state your name and address before speaking, and you have 4 minutes for public comment.
Andrew Murphy, 1828 Blacksbridge Road. I have a few questions because you guys seem to be going forward with the, or at least acting like you're going forward with all these new schools. You guys are in your finance in section 6. You guys are looking at approving new wireless controllers and access points. Are you guys putting these in buildings that you guys are about to replace or remodel so that in 2 years we'll be throwing these things away? Or are these going to be going in places that are going to be staying and actually be using money? Because you're talking $150,000, which you say you're going to get 70% back, so you're still talking $45,000 that's probably coming from the taxpayer. So are those going to be kept and used for years to come, or is this just a, hey, let's get through 2 years? Because if you're just doing it to get through 2 years as you build your new schools, then why spend the money? Pretty much, that's my big curiosity. And also, are we going to be able? Is the public going to be able to ask questions tomorrow night at the Act 34 hearing? So, I'm curious about that as well.
Okay, I think Mr. Murphy's done. I will say that when we get to that part, Kirk, I'm gonna warn you, I'm gonna let you explain a little bit about our plan there. And then as far as public comments are done tomorrow, yes. Actually, there was information about that in the advertisement to pre-register, but I'm pretty sure, and Brooke, you can comment that Dave Jones, who'll be running it, we'll open it up to the floor for comment at some point. It'll be held very similarly to what we do a board meeting, where there'll be a 5-minute period of time to talk and ask questions at that point. Questions may or may not be answered immediately depending on what they are, but very similar to a board meeting where you would comment and then that will be for the board to discuss at the next meeting. Brooke, does that sound correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's actually, the Act 34 process is run a lot like a board meeting. The great thing is you're gonna have a number of your contractors there. When questions are raised, as long as those contractors are comfortable answering some of those questions, the ones that are directed towards the project and things like that, they'll answer some of those questions, because the whole point is to make sure that we get as much community feedback as is possible before the board moves forward for its decision. So you'll have an attorney there running things. There'll be a stenographer recording all the comments down and making a record of the proceedings. And there might be some questions that are raised for the board for larger discussion. But as far as the details of the financing, the details of the project itself, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be there for a response if taxpayers have questions. We're asking for signups in advance, as well as I think there's an opportunity for sign up when you actually appear. We just want to do it in an organized fashion so everybody can put their name down and be recorded on the record. So.
Thank you. Item 4 states that the minutes shall note that public notice was given for the meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. Notices and advisements of these meetings will carry the intent that limited business may be conducted on any scheduled date. Moving on to item 5, this moves into our items for discussion on the consent calendar for next meeting. Items 5.1 through 5.3, Dr. Messinger.
Yeah, our normal items there are the approval of minutes, the student activity account, and the cash disbursements.
Any questions on those items? All right, moving forward to budget and finance.
Several items under that. The first one is an agreement with Krassenberg and Associates. They do business as Keystone Collections Group that we utilize.
I think we have someone who accessed the live stream. So I don't know, Kirk, if you can see those comments that are coming through in the chat. Looks like there's some inappropriate language there. I would just instruct anybody who's seeing that to ignore it, and I think Kirk's going to take some steps to address it.
Yeah, I just removed him, and I'll see if I can figure out why he was able to post.
Thanks, Kirk. Okay, the second one is a student service agreement with Yellow Breeches for the 2021-22 school year. The third one is our agreement with children and youth experiencing homelessness through the Berks County Intermediate Unit, and Director Nam had asked a question about that. We use them as our source of information for homeless situations. Kirk, I'm going to let you talk about the approval of the controllers and wireless access points, and you actually have an updated price, I believe, for us as well.
Yes, the final winning bid was $98,000, and I believe it was $98,000. The purpose of the hardware that we're looking to buy at this point is it will replace the controllers that manage all of the wireless access points at all school district buildings. And we're looking to replace the wireless access points at the secondary school. At this point, we decided not to move forward with any purchase of access points at the elementary buildings until that final decision is made regarding renovation versus new construction. So this will only be installed at the high school. One of the controllers will be installed at one of the elementaries as a redundancy, but it will be brought back if the situation affords that. It would be brought back because since it's purchased with E-rate, we must keep it for at least 5 years. So we have to keep track of that asset to comply with E-rate.
And Kirk, can you talk a little bit about why those need replaced?
Well, the access points that we have are more than 5 years old, and basically the latest generation of wireless access points requires a new controller to manage them. So we need to update that hardware in order to manage the latest generation access points that are on the market. The new access points that we are purchasing are compliant with a new standard called Wi-Fi 6, which basically gives them far greater throughput and hopefully will allow us to use fewer access points to cover the same number of students and the same amount of square footage.
Okay, any questions for Kirk about that? Okay, and we do get 70% of that back, fortunately. And the last one is the authorizing the administration to work with PFM financial advisors, stock and leader and bond counsel and solicitor proceed and prepare for current refunding of all portions of its outstanding general obligation bonds. A series of 2021 to finance new money needs to the district in the amount of $25 million. Leanne and Brad, could you guys talk about that? As a matter of fact, why don't you talk about the resolution as well?
Sure. So I'll let Brad explain the exact process we're going to be going through with this, but this is authorization for us to move forward. I will be working with Brad and his team members on preparations to go and prepare for the bond. And the resolution down below is for us that once we're all done and we have the bond money into our capital funds, that we can reimburse ourselves for the money spent to date for that with the bond money, so that that's not coming out of our general fund dollars.
Right, and I'll probably suggest maybe some change in some of the wording, because we're not going to be refunding old bonds. We're just going to be issuing a new bond for the elementary project. The current refunding, I think, was what we did last year. If you remember, we did the refinancing of your existing debt and dropped your debt service down pretty significantly. So what's going to happen here is this would allow the team, as it was outlined, to start preparing all the resolutions, get credit ratings, prepare prospectuses or official statements so we can go ahead and issue the bond. The actual vote on the bond resolution would be at your March 9th meeting. That was when the board would authorize the bond issue, and then we would, after that, the board approves it, we would then go ahead and sell the bonds upon your approval in March. The number that was derived, we worked very closely with Crabtree and Leanne and everyone over there at the district to try and get an idea of the amount of money that would be needed to kind of do the first financing. That includes the elementary. I know you have some athletic field things that you're considering as well. We thought this would be enough money to get you through until next spring. And then next spring, once we have all the bids and all the final costs or a real good handle on that, we would clean up with the second financing so we make sure we borrow the appropriate amount as well. So this would just be the first step in a two-step process to fund those two projects.
Question for them. And keep in mind that we can always move something from consent to discussion next week if questions come up and you'd like to talk further about that.
Dr. Messinger, I do have one question going back to the wireless network controllers. So the cost is to not exceed $150,000, and maybe Kirk can answer this. So do we anticipate that that will be in the range of the cost, or do we have an idea of what the reality would be?
We did between the time that we had this information and today, we did get a cost of 98,000 something. Kirk, what, you know that exact number?
I'm sorry, hang on 1 second, I'm trying to find it. I believe it's $98,100. Yeah, we were finalizing bids with several vendors using the PEPM contract, and we had a little bit of a challenge with the item numbers from the vendor, so we had to revise that, and we just weren't quite ready at the time. But we had that squared away, and we got the final answers on Monday.
I have a question about the those wireless network controllers as well. One is, was this budgeted for in last year's budget? And two is, can CARES Act money take care of the remaining 30% that will not be reimbursed?
I'll talk a little bit about that. It was not budgeted for, and that's something that Kirk is working very hard at trying to put together as we work on the long-term plan for the district. Kirk's and several other folks are working on long-term plans for replacement of things in their normal life cycles. That's not something that was done pre-Kirk being here, and I appreciate him working on that. As far as the CARES money, I don't know that it would fit in, but I do know that his budget, while he'll be embarrassed, but we don't blame him for this. He's a little over budget right now this year, but a lot of those costs are being reimbursed from the money that we've received, or are receiving the CARES grant. You know, the purchasing of the microphones, the purchasing of the cameras, the purchasing of additional computers in order to make sure that when kids that are home live streaming need something fixed, instead of taking it, repairing it, and then coming back, we're giving them a loaner. We've made some purchases there that will be reimbursed through it. So we're trying to take advantage of that E-rate, that 70% back, which is very helpful. But I don't know that this could go directly toward it, because I don't think it's a result of COVID. But certainly there have been other expenses that we are in the technology.
Thank you. And did you mention the bus drivers 6.2?
No, sorry. Wanted to make sure there weren't any other questions there. And the last one on there is just an updated list of drivers employed by DD Fisher.
Are there any questions on the budget and finance items? Are we good for consent for these items? Sounds like consent is fine. Moving on to actually we have no items for buildings and grounds, so we will move ahead to our extracurricular, item 8.
A list of spring sport coaching salaries there for you. Paid and volunteer coaches are listed. It appears at this point that we will have spring sports. Winter sports are currently going strong, and when we're not having snow and people are not quarantined, we're having games, which is good. but I think spring will allow us to be outside and get some activities in there as well. 8.2 is the the debate club. The debate club has actually been here before, but we are going to get that started again, and Derek Hitz will be the advisor for the debate club.
Are there any questions on those items? Okay, moving forward, item 9 is our curriculum items.
9.1, still working through, and will be for a while, although we're getting close to the end of the 300s. I think we're 2/3 of the way through. Final adoption of policy 331, 332, 333, and 824 for you to approve. And then 8.9.2, we have some tentative adoption, policy 335, all the way up to 343 for you to read for the first time. And then we have a retirement of policy 300, 400, 500, which, as we talked about today, will add those definitions to administrative procedures as suggested by PSBA. And then policy 335, also better suited for administrative regulations. 9.4, we do have, you had approved the anatomy and physiology class. The textbook is there for approval. It's in Pat's office if you'd like to take a look at that. And then it is calendar time again. You'll see, if you haven't already, that the calendar looks very similar to last year. Due to Christmas break, we actually, in the week, a lot of times graduation falls on a Thursday. It's actually a little earlier this year due to the shortened Christmas break. But other than that, it looks pretty similar to last year.
Are there any questions on those items? All right, moving on to item 10, that is our human relations items.
A few professional substitutes there for you to approve. In addition to that, we have a classified substitute, recent graduate of NL there. We have a leave request for you, teacher from Lickdale. Have a couple of resignations, retirement, and also wanted to just thank Tara Gross for her service as B3 coordinator. She has wanted an assistant principal position, and she's applied places and was offered one, and I'm very proud of her, glad to see her getting an opportunity to do that, because that's something she's wanted to do. And then also two instructional assistants at the bottom for you there. And then finally, several informational items, Ashley Tobias and Aaron Grove there for you.
Are there any questions regarding those HR items? Okay, a couple announcements. As was already mentioned, tomorrow, Wednesday, February 3rd, is our building meeting, our Act 34 meeting at 6:30. That can be viewed online via Zoom or YouTube, or you may come in person to the school. Our next school board meeting is Tuesday, February 9th. Is there anything else for the good of the order this evening? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say abstain or nay. The motion has passed. I now call this meeting adjourned. Stay safe and warm and have a good night.